Well, we were looking ahead to a big Sunday in the Premier League with Manchester United hosting Liverpool. Mark Ogden is there at Old Trafford. Oggy, you were there for this match. Now we know that the match has indeed been postponed after the United protesters went onto the pitch to obviously protest their continued disapproval of the Glazer family's ownership of the club. Now that it's been postponed, what else? Just let us know what the atmosphere was like as well there and what's kind of happened after.
Well, I arrived at the ground maybe 3 hours before kickoff, and at the point they wouldn't let me into the car park or the stadium because there was a lockdown in place, a stadium lockdown. There were a few fans outside with banners, but it was very good natured. And then it seemed to turn around the team hotel, which is about 2 miles away from the stadium, the Lowry Hotel. Fans appeared outside. The team bus couldn't leave. A lot of flares being let off, and then the fans seemed to move across to Old Trafford onto the forecourt, which is on the far side of the stadium. Again, a lot of protests, a lot of banners. A lot of noise, and from that point on, it just seemed to escalate. We've seen the fans invaded the pitch. They got onto the pitch. They were playing football on the pitch. They were causing havoc, basically, which is the whole idea of the protest, I guess. And then there were one more occasion where that happened. So we've had 2 lockdowns where the fans have got into the pitch, and the key issue that has led to this being postponed is because the fans got into the tunnel area and the dressing room area, which is part of the so-called red zone, which means that in terms of COVID protocols, the red zone is meant to be a very kind of secure, biosecure part of the ground. Now, if people outside that bubble have got into the stadium, they had to clean the stadium again, make sure it was COVID safe. And clearly, with 2 separate incidents, it's not been possible to, first of all, clean the stadium so it's safe for the players to come in. But also, they don't know if everyone is at the stadium. It's such a big stadium that there could be fans still inside the stadium, maybe waiting to get into the game, an hour into the game. So I think it's a sensible thing to do, because if they'd started the game, with the possibility of fans still being inside, we could have had more disruption. So the biggest game in English football has been basically called off by a fan protest, and it's a big event.
Well, of course, everyone's going to start asking what next now, because this is yet another fan protest that we have seen. This is a massive one, as well as we saw with Arsenal fans and Chelsea fans about the European Super League. But this United one, we know, is nothing new. We know since the takeover of the Glazer family, the United fans just have not approved of them. We just heard from Gary Neville as well as Roy Keane, and they kind of hinted that this is actually the beginning of something greater that we could see more of. From what you've been hearing there in Manchester and the whispers over the last couple of hours, what kind of feeling do you get as to what could possibly be next?
Well, there's certainly a lot of anger about the Glazer ownership, and what I'm hearing is that people say this is the start of things, and the next time United play, the same thing will happen again. So whenever this game is rescheduled, there'll be a similar, protest. But I'd imagine at that point, the authorities, the police, the stewards will have a much greater awareness of what might happen. So it'll be much more difficult for it to happen again. But, it's all right saying that the fans' protests will continue, it may escalate. But we've seen before with the Glazer family and other owners that, they don't tend to listen to fan protests. They don't live in the country, they're not rooted in the community. They're making maybe 70, 80 million pounds a year by owning this club. So if they're making so much money out of it, they can ride out the protests. Now, obviously, it's embarrassing for Man United for this to happen, and it's embarrassing for the owners. But the Glazer family are based in the US. They live in Florida. They live in the New York area, so they will be insulated from this. They're not feeling it on the doorstep. So, like in 2010 with the green and gold protest, I imagine they'll see it to blow over, and they know that there's nobody out there that can buy the club. Fan ownership has been spoken about in the UK, 50+1, like in Germany. If you're going to buy 50% of Manchester United, currently the New York Stock Exchange, it's worth £3 billion. So who's going to find £1.5 billion to buy the Glazers out? I don't see anybody, certainly not the fans. The fans can't, kind of raise that money themselves. So it's an impossibility to see the owners being bought out. So yes, it might be comfortable for a while, but let's be honest, the season's nearly finished. We've got the Euros this summer. Next season will start with fans in the ground. And a lot depends on what happens on the pitch. Now, let's see what happens in 6 months' time. I imagine the Glazer family will ride this out, as they always do, because the club makes too much money for them not to be here. If the club started costing them money, maybe different, but right now, they're making money out of it, and I suppose they could ride out the storm.
Well, interesting couple of days ahead, I suppose, as we learn more about the fallout from here. But unfortunately, one of the things that did suffer on the day is this massive fixture, United Liverpool, as you said, one of the biggest rivalries in English football. Have you heard anything from the Manchester United or Liverpool players camp to see probably what the managers, players might be thinking about when on earth they're going to fit in yet another match in an already packed schedule?
Nothing. I mean, everyone's kind of waiting for guidance. Obviously, it's a social media blackout this weekend, so
Yeah.
the players have not been able to kind of register their feelings and issues of what's happened today. I'd imagine that the players themselves and the coach staff are quite. I'd imagine the Liverpool players and staff are quite angry about this because they've come all this way to kind of prepare for a game. The United players will be thinking the same, but ultimately the fans have a right to protest, as we know, and the fans have taken it to this level. So I think players just want to play. Let's be honest, if this game had finished a Liverpool win today, Man City would have won the title today. So the implications have a knock-on effect across the city as well. So listen, there's just a big state of confusion right now because we don't know when the game is going to be played again. We don't know if it's going to be fit in between now and the actual official end of the season, or if it has to go beyond that. So it's a tough call.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.